rosette, which will surround the sound hole of the guitar. Purely decorative feature. There's nothing functional about it. Just a good way to dress up a guitar and put your own style into it. So I want to make a radial rosette, meaning that the grain pattern will always be going out from the center of the sound hole in a radial manner. So I cut these shapes on the CNC from these pieces of cherry, and then after they were cut on the CNC, I ran them through the bandsaw on edge. I turned it on edge, run it through the bandsaw, and you can see the bandsaw curve here, right here. And so once I do that, it cuts these pieces, and they just dump right out like that. Yeah. Cut here, dump them right out. Don't need that in there. So those go away. And then what happens is these pieces get arranged in a circle like this. I need 12. I actually made 14, so I have 2 extras in case I mess one up. But these will go into a circle like this. Now, my plan is to also include some walnut dividers. My 2 extras. Make some little walnut dividers and put in between these pieces, like this. And it will be a challenge to glue this up because all these pieces want to move around. So I'll probably try to use a large hose clamp to clamp them into a circle after I put the glue on the pieces so that they can dry in a perfect circle. Relatively perfect anyway. Doesn't have to be 100% perfect. Just has to look good when it's done. And I think this cherry with these pieces of walnut will look really nice. And so there we go. Move all these in a little bit. And that's what we'll end up with, something like that. These little walnut sticks in between, they'll be trimmed off, of course, so that they don't stick out the outside of the circle like a sunburst. Some version of a rosette that looks something like that.
Well, I made a test run, put all the pieces together in a dry fit, made sure the hose clamp approach was going to work, and it did, so now it's time for some glue up. I'll use a brush and apply a little bit of glue to each edge, each mating edge of these cherry pieces. For good glue joint, it's important to get glue on all the mating surfaces, so I'll put glue on all the cherry pieces and then also on all the little walnut dividers that go in between them, both sides. It's a bit of a tedious process. I've sped it up for the video. And here's the last divider piece. And once I get glue on that, everything has glue on it. We'll try to get them all as close together as possible. Arrange it into a rough circle. Because I'm using a hose clamp, which is round, and because these pieces are cut to an exact angle, when I tighten the hose clamp on it, it will all get pulled into a perfect circle. The angles will force it into a perfect circle as it's compressed. And it's pretty close. Let me just put the hose clamp on. Tighten it up. Okay, so I got it tightened up, and make sure everything's nice and flat. Press it down good to the table. It's wanting to pull up a little bit, curl a little bit, so get a couple of scrap pieces out of the scrap bin. Put on there and put this jug of water on top. That'll hold it flat while the glue cures. And I'll let it cure for a couple hours before I do anything else to it. And the glue has cured for a couple hours, and so now let's take it out of the hose clamp, see what it looks like. Use the wax paper because glue doesn't like to stick to the wax paper that much. It does a little bit, but the wax paper keeps me from gluing my rosette to the workbench. There's always a little squeeze out, a little glue squeeze out from the joints. And you'll see it looks like the paper is really stuck to the rosette, but it's not stuck that bad. I'm just pulling very gently, so it takes a minute. Last thing I want to do is to peel apart some of the joints in the rosette that I worked so hard to get right. There we go. Now it's a little more visible. It's kind of disappears into the color of the workbench without something behind it. I think that turned out pretty good. Everything looks pretty even. It pulled itself into a nice circle. I like the combination of cherry and walnut. With some finish on it, I think it'll darken up a little bit and be quite nice. Well, onto the CNC. We'll have the CNC shear off the face, which will make it nice and smooth and flat. And it will also cut out the final dimension of the rosette, and it will leave it attached to an outer framework with small tabs. You'll see those as I pick it up here in a second. And leaving it attached by those tabs is so that when the CNC is finished milling to final size, the rosette isn't left unattached to anything and doesn't go flying across the room. So here you can see the tabs attaching the rosette to the outer framework. And I think it smoothed up pretty good on the face. Here it is attached to its outer framework, and I'll cut those little tabs with a very small saw blade. And then we have this, and I think that turned out pretty good.